The most dangerous lies in a courtroom aren't the ones people tell under oath. They're the ones no one ever says out loud. In 2005, David was convicted of murdering his friend, Peterson. No body, no forensic evidence, no eyewitness. Just a story the system decided was good enough. For 19 years, David sat in a cell, believing that if he just waited long enough, the truth would surface. He was wrong about one thing. The truth wasn't buried. It was sitting there in the paperwork, in the unanswered questions, in the people who chose not to speak. And then one day in a quiet courtroom, everything changed. The man David had supposedly killed, Peterson, walked in alive. 19 years of certainty collapsed in a few silent seconds. At the time, the case looked simple. In the spring of 2005, David was 32 years old. He worked in commercial construction, laying foundation for strip malls and office buildings across the county. He'd done the same work for 8 years. Reliable, steady, quiet. Peterson was 35. He ran a small equipment rental business out of a warehouse on the east side. Forklifts, scaffolding, generators, the kind of operation that survived on handshake deals and cash payments. The two men had known each other since high school. Not close back then, but they'd reconnected a few years prior when David started renting equipment for job sites. Coffee once a month, beers after work, the kind of friendship that exists in the margins of busy lives. On March 14, 2005, Peterson stopped showing up. His warehouse stayed locked. His phone went to voicemail. His truck sat untouched in the parking lot for 3 days before someone called the police. According to the initial missing person report, Peterson had no family in the area. His ex-wife lived 2 states away. His business partner, a man named Gary, told investigators he hadn't heard from Peterson in over a week, which wasn't unusual. Peterson kept irregular hours, but when police checked Peterson's apartment, they found something that shifted the entire investigation. A voicemail on his answering machine, left by David, dated March 13, the night before Peterson disappeared. The message was short, 11 seconds. David's voice tense. "We need to talk about the money. Call me back tonight." That single voicemail became the spine of the prosecution's case. According to court filings, prosecutors believe Peterson owed David money. The two men had argued over a failed equipment rental deal. David had fronted cash for machinery Peterson never delivered. The amount, somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000, depending on which witness you asked. Court filings describe the prosecution's narrative this way. David confronted Peterson on the night of March 13th. The confrontation turned violent. Peterson was killed. His body was disposed of in a way that left no trace. No forensic team was ever brought to Peterson's apartment. No blood evidence. No signs of struggle. The case file notes that the apartment appeared orderly during the initial sweep. But the theory didn't need physical proof. It needed motive. And according to the district attorney, the voicemail provided exactly that. David admitted to police that he'd gone to Peterson's apartment on the night of March 13th. He said they'd talked for maybe 20 minutes. Peterson had seemed distracted, mentioned he was dealing with some personal stuff, and told David he'd have the money sorted out by the end of the month. David left around 9 p.m. He was the last person to see Peterson alive, or so everyone believed. 2 other details sealed the case in the eyes of investigators. First, David's truck. A forensic team examined it 2 weeks after Peterson disappeared. They found traces of soil in the truck bed that matched dirt composition from a rural area 40 miles outside the city. The area was known for illegal dumping sites. David said he'd driven out there months earlier to pick up scrap metal for a job. No one could confirm or deny that. Second, David's demeanor. According to trial transcripts, multiple officers testified that during questioning, David seemed calm and detached. He didn't cry, didn't raise his voice, answered questions in short, measured sentences. The prosecution framed this as evidence of a guilty conscience. According to trial transcripts, the lead detective described David as someone who showed no real concern for his missing friend. The trial lasted 6 days. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. Guilty, murder in the first degree. At sentencing, the judge called the crime calculated and remorseless. He noted that David had shown no willingness to assist in locating the victim's remains. He sentenced David to life in prison without the possibility of parole. David stood when the sentence was read. According to courtroom observers, he said 4 words: "I didn't kill him." Then he was let out. On paper, it looked like justice. On paper. The case file for Peterson's disappearance runs to 473 pages. Most of it is routine paperwork, witness statements, phone records, initial search logs. But buried in those pages are threads that were never pulled. On page 206, there's a note from a patrol officer who responded to the initial missing person call. The officer spoke with Peterson's neighbor, a woman named Linda, who mentioned that Peterson had talked about leaving town for a while in the weeks before he disappeared. She said he seemed stressed, mentioned something about debts. There's no follow-up report on that conversation. Linda was never called to testify. On page 312, investigators logged a credit card transaction in Peterson's name. The charge was made at a gas station in a town 200 miles south, 4 days after he was last seen. The transaction was flagged as potentially fraudulent, the assumption someone had stolen Peterson's wallet. No one traveled to the gas station to request security footage. The case file notes the lead as inconclusive. On page 89, there's a handwritten note from a detective. It reads, "Check storage unit records. Peterson rented space at U-Store on Maple. Last payment, March 10th. Needs follow-up." No follow-up is recorded. The storage unit was never searched. These weren't hidden. They were filed, logged, documented. They just weren't spoken. And because they were never spoken, they were never tested in front of a jury. 3 people claimed they saw Peterson after March 13th. None of them testified. The first was a man named Terrence who worked at a convenience store near Peterson's warehouse. According to a brief statement he gave to police in April 2005, Terrence remembered Peterson coming in on the morning of March 15th. He was certain of the date because it was the day after his daughter's birthday. Peterson bought cigarettes and a coffee. Seemed normal. Terrence's statement is in the file. He was never contacted again. The second was a woman named Rachel, who lived in the same apartment complex as Peterson. She told investigators she saw Peterson loading boxes into his truck on the evening of March 14th. She remembered because she asked if he was moving. He said, "Just clearing some stuff out." Rachel's statement was taken over the phone. She was never asked to appear in court. The third was Peterson's business partner, Gary. In his initial statement to police, Gary mentioned that Peterson had talked about starting fresh somewhere else. He said Peterson had seemed withdrawn in the weeks before he disappeared, like he was planning something. At trial, Gary's testimony focused only on the business relationship between Peterson and David. He was never asked about Peterson's state of mind or his comments about leaving. When reporters later contacted Gary after David's conviction, he said he'd assumed the detectives already knew about those conversations. He said he thought they'd follow up. No one did. Peterson's financial records told a complicated story. In the 2 months before he disappeared, Peterson had withdrawn over $23,000 in cash from his business account. The withdrawals were made in increments. $2,000 here, $3,000 there, all from different ATMs across the city. Bank records were subpoenaed during the investigation. They appear in the case file, but they were never introduced as evidence at trial. The prosecution's narrative centered on David owing Peterson money. The defense argued there was no proof of any debt, but neither side addressed the question of where Peterson's cash went. There was also a report from the DMV. 6 weeks before Peterson disappeared, he'd requested a duplicate driver's license, claiming his original had been lost. This was noted in the file under miscellaneous background information. No one asked why. Peterson's phone records show 17 calls to an unlisted number in the 2 weeks before he vanished. The number belonged to a burner phone that was never traced. The calls lasted between 3 and 14 minutes each. The records were filed, the calls were never explained. What emerges from the case file isn't a smoking gun. It's a pattern of silence. Questions that could have been asked but weren't. Leads that could have been followed but stopped. Witnesses who spoke once and were never heard from again. According to court records, the investigation into Peterson's disappearance lasted 19 days before it shifted to a homicide case focused entirely on David. After that, the focus narrowed. No alternative theories were pursued. There's no record that anyone asked why. According to appellate court records, David filed his first appeal in 2006, 11 months after his conviction. It was denied on procedural grounds. His attorney argued that the evidence was entirely circumstantial and that key witness testimony had been excluded. The appellate court ruled that the trial had been conducted fairly under existing standards. He filed again in 2009, denied. Again in 2013, denied. Again in 2018, denied. Each appeal took months to prepare. Each one required filing deadlines, legal briefs, motions for review. Each one required hope that someone, somewhere, would look at the case and see what David saw. A conviction built on assumptions, not proof. After the fourth denial, David stopped filing. By then, he'd spent 13 years inside. In an interview years later, he told a reporter that he'd realized something during those years. The system wasn't designed to question itself. It was designed to move forward. Once you're convicted, he said, the question stops being whether you did it. The question becomes whether the process was followed, and the process was followed. He was right. David's mother passed away in 2011. He wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. Prison policy required that family death leave be approved 48 hours in advance. By the time the paperwork was processed, the service was over. His younger sister graduated from college in 2008. She sent him photos. He kept them in a folder under his bunk. His niece was born in 2014. He met her for the first time during a visiting hour when she was 3 years old. She called him the man mommy visits. In 2016, David's father had a stroke. He survived but lost the ability to speak clearly. During their last visit together, David's father tried to say something. David couldn't understand. He nodded anyway. These weren't extraordinary tragedies. They were ordinary life, moving forward without him. Time didn't stop. It just stopped, including him. David maintained his innocence for the first 7 years. He wrote letters. He talked to anyone who would listen. He believed that if he kept insisting on the truth, someone would eventually hear it. By year 8, he'd stopped talking about it. Not because he'd accepted guilt, but because he'd realized that belief and proof are different things. People believed he was guilty because a jury had said so. That was proof enough for most. He started spending more time in the prison library. He read history, philosophy, anything that existed outside the present moment. A cellmate once asked him how he stayed sane. David said, "I don't think about what I lost. I think about what still exists when I'm not looking at it." The world kept turning. His family kept living. The truth kept being true, whether anyone spoke it or not. By year 15, David had become what prison makes of people who survive it. Quiet, observant, patient in a way that has nothing to do with hope. He wasn't waiting for justice anymore. He was just waiting. On August 9th, 2024, a highway patrol officer in Nevada pulled over a vehicle for a broken taillight. Routine traffic stop. The officer ran the driver's license. The name came back flagged, not for a warrant, for something stranger, a notation in the system that the license holder had been listed as a possible homicide victim in a 2005 case file. The notation had been entered 19 years earlier and never removed. The driver was Peterson. He was 54 years old. He'd been living in Nevada for nearly 2 decades under his real name. He had a job managing inventory at a warehouse supply company. He paid taxes. He had a lease, a bank account, a valid driver's license. He hadn't been hiding. When the officer asked Peterson if he knew about the flag on his license, Peterson said yes. He said he tried to clear it up years ago, but hadn't followed through. He said he'd assumed someone would have removed it by now. The officer asked Peterson if he was aware that someone had been convicted of murdering him. According to the officer's report, Peterson went silent for a long time. Then he said, "I heard something about that. I didn't think it was real." According to internal correspondence later disclosed, it took 6 days that had prosecuted David. The initial call was treated as a potential prank. It took another 3 days to verify Peterson's identity through fingerprints and cross-reference records. On August 18, 2024, 9 days after the traffic stop, the district attorney's office filed an emergency motion to vacate David's conviction. The motion stated, "The individual identified as the victim in this case has been located alive. The conviction is no longer legally sustainable." It took another 11 days for the motion to be scheduled for a hearing. During those 11 days, David remained in prison. According to later interviews, he wasn't informed of the development immediately. The warden's office wanted to wait until the legal process was certain before raising what they called false hope. David found out on August 22nd when his public defender visited him in person. The conversation lasted 4 minutes. The lawyer said, "Peterson is alive. You're getting out." David later said he didn't believe it at first. He thought it was some kind of procedural error, some technicality that would collapse as soon as someone looked closer. It wasn't. The hearing was held on August 29th, 2024. Courtroom 6B, same courthouse where David had been sentenced 19 years earlier. Peterson appeared in person, accompanied by an attorney he'd hired the week before. He sat in the gallery, not at a table. He looked older, thinner, grayed. David was brought in wearing standard prison transport clothing, hands cuffed in front of him. He saw Peterson immediately. According to witnesses in the courtroom, David stared at Peterson for a long time. Peterson looked down at his hands. The judge, a different judge than the one who'd sentenced David, addressed the room briefly. She said the purpose of the hearing was to address the motion to vacate. She noted that the basis for the original conviction had been fundamentally invalidated by the appearance of the alleged victim. She asked Peterson to confirm his identity. He did. She asked if he had any explanation for his disappearance in 2005. Peterson's attorney objected, stating that his client was not on trial and was under no obligation to explain his personal decisions. The judge sustained the objection. She turned to David. She asked if he had anything he wanted to say. David spoke for the first time in the hearing. His voice was quiet but clear. "I've been saying it for 19 years. The judge granted the motion. The conviction was vacated. David was ordered released immediately. The entire hearing lasted 12 minutes. The release. David walked out of the courthouse at 3:47 p.m. that same day. His sister was waiting outside. So were 7 reporters, 3 camera crews, and approximately 40 people who'd heard about the case and showed up to witness the moment. David didn't make a statement. He got into his sister's car and left. Later that evening, the district attorney's office issued a press release. It read in part, "While this case represents an extraordinary and unfortunate circumstance, it also demonstrates that our legal system contains mechanisms for correcting errors when new evidence comes to light." The release did not mention the 19 years. It did not mention the appeals that had been denied. It did not mention the evidence that had been in the file all along. The system, according to the official record, had worked, eventually. Then, if you want more stories like this, where the truth was there all along, but no one spoke it, subscribe to the channel. No one was disciplined for the handling of David's case. The prosecutors who built the case against him had followed standard procedures. The detectives who investigated Peterson's disappearance had worked within established protocols. The appellate judges who denied David's motions had applied existing legal standards. The system didn't fail because people broke the rules. The system failed because people followed them. There was no investigation into why key witnesses weren't called. No review of why financial records were filed but never examined. No inquiry into why a man convicted of murder spent 19 years in prison while the supposed victim lived under his real name 2 states away. According to legal analysts who reviewed the case, David would have grounds to file a wrongful conviction lawsuit. Such lawsuits can take years and often result in settlements far below what the years lost might reasonably be worth. As of this recording, David has not filed. On paper, the system corrected itself. A man was wrongfully convicted. New evidence emerged. The conviction was overturned. The man was freed. The process worked. Off paper, there is no record of anyone being held responsible for 19 years of a life that can't be returned. No accounting for the silence that surrounded the case from the beginning. Peterson has not spoken publicly about why he disappeared or why he never came forward when he learned of David's conviction. His attorney has stated that Peterson is not legally required to explain his actions and has requested privacy. David has given 2 interviews since his release. In both, he was asked if he was angry. In both, he gave the same answer. Anger requires energy I don't have anymore. He was asked what he wants now. He said, "I want to meet my niece without bars between us." He was asked if he believes justice was served. He said justice would have been someone asking the right questions in 2005. The case file for Peterson's disappearance is still available in public records. All 473 pages. The unanswered questions are still there. The ignored leads. The witnesses who spoke once and were never called back. Nothing was hidden, it just wasn't spoken. No one was punished for the silence. The paperwork shows a clean story, a conviction entered, a motion filed, a judgment vacated. The system corrected itself, eventually. 19 years later, the truth arrived. On time for no one,